It is well that the people of our nation should not understand our monetary system, for if they did, there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning. Henry Ford. We have in this country one of the most corrupt institutions the world has ever known. I refer to the Federal Reserve Board. This evil institution has impoverished the people of the United States and has particularly bankrupted our government. It has done this through the corrupt practices of the moneyed vultures who control it. Congressman Louis T. McFadden. I believe that banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies. President Thomas Jefferson. History records that the money changers have used every form of abuse, intrigue, deceit, and violent means possible to maintain their control over governments by controlling money and its issuance. James Madison. Most Americans have no real understanding of the operations of the international moneylenders. The accounts of the Federal Reserve System have never been audited. It operates outside the control of Congress and manipulates the credit of the United States. Senator Barry Goldwater. If that experiment that was called America is at an end, then perhaps a fitting epitaph would read, "Here lies America, the greatest nation that might have been had it not been for the bankers, who first stole their money, used their stolen money to buy their politicians and their press, and lastly deprived them of their constitutional freedom by the most evil device ever created, the Federal Reserve Banking System." G.D. McDaniel. Fascism should be more accurately defined as corporatism, for it is the marriage of the corporation to the state. Benito Mussolini. What we propose is a national, international strike to stand in solidarity with the rest of the world against the Federal Reserve System. The 16th Amendment wasn't even properly ratified, creating the IRS, creating the federal income tax. That's right. Every year, the federal government commit 300 million felonies when they take our taxes. This general strike to be held on Tax Day, or Theft Day, April 15th, 2008. And if you don't have a job, don't worry about it. Just withdraw your money from the bank on that day. You see, all they have is our currency to control us. If we deny them this, they'll have nothing.
This tax honesty movement includes some curious members, including our next guest, a former IRS special agent, Joseph Bannister, joining us today from San Jose. Also joining us, a true conservative congressman from Texas who favors total elimination of income taxes and has said that income taxes violate the U.S. Constitution. Congressman Ron Paul of Texas. Gentlemen, nice to have you with us. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria.
John, let me begin with you. You used to work for the IRS. What makes you say that most Americans don't have to pay income taxes?
Well, the sheer solidness of the evidence. I did about 2 years of investigation part-time while I was a special agent for the IRS, and really couldn't help but conclude that the evidence showed that most Americans weren't required to pay it, at least not according to the laws passed by Congress.
What is the evidence?
The evidence fills up dozens of binders and file drawers in my own home, but of course there's much more evidence than that. Evidence about liability statutes, what form is actually required by Americans to file. When you actually look at the statutes and regulations rather than just the IRS pamphlets, you learn that the income tax doesn't have quite the application that the IRS would lead the American people to believe.
Congressman, you agree? You've written in the past that income taxes violate the 16th Amendment. Explain that idea.
Well, I'm more concerned about the way the 16th Amendment was passed, and I don't think it was technically correct. And I think Mr. Bannister's correct, and technically we shouldn't have to pay the income tax.
Do you sympathize with the estimated 1 million Americans who don't pay taxes based on principle?
Well, yeah, I sympathize with them because I know what they're up against. Some of them do it out of desperation. Some of them do it as part-time just to survive, to feed their families.
The thing is that in my own manuals back when I was a special agent, the IRS, they compared tax avoidance to tax evasion. And tax avoidance, even according to the courts, is a legal method and something that people have a legal right and duty to engage in. And what the IRS is trying to do is blur the line between tax avoidance and tax evasion. And now they've come up with this new term called abusive tax avoidance. So basically, Americans are going to be targeted for harassment if they're engaging in legal conduct and making it difficult for the IRS by not bearing their financial souls to the agency.
It seems pretty aggressive. Why do you think you've been able to get away with not paying or filing your income taxes for so long?
Well, first of all, I've not gotten away with anything. I'm not hiding from anyone. I'm simply asking the IRS to show me the laws that apparently require me to do these things, and they are suspiciously reticent to answer questions from me, and of course there are millions of other people, many other organizations who have attempted to get answers. In fact, the Congress may be aware that we were trying to have a hearing whereby Department of Justice and IRS officials would appear and answer questions, and they pulled out at the last minute. And so they act very suspiciously when asked to simply sit down at the table with the American people and discuss what their obligations are. Rather than pulling up a chair, they pull out a club.
We have to face up to the fact that our government is too big and the spending is out of control, and the tax authorities are becoming out of control as well because they're determined to collect the revenues. And the Congress is silent on this now. A few years ago, they were up in an uproar. They were going to tame the IRS, and for about 6 months that happened. But right now, the Congress, they're desperate. They're spending the money, and they want to cover some of these deficits, and that's why they are not fighting the increased role of the IRS now that's going to become more ruthless in the next year or two.